Information Station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 18 minutes after 10 o'clock. 11 days ago, we were trying to scare you with spooky stuff for Halloween. You know, nothing is going to scare you more than what I'm about to tell you. Nothing will scare you more. The word cancer can scare you, right? But listen to this. My notes say an increasing number of Americans are living with a serious form of cancer. There's a scary word. Now, the next part of the sentence is even scarier. A serious form of cancer that can take up to 7 years to diagnose. Holy cow. Mm-hmm. That is scary stuff, right? So let's talk about this. Dr. Eric Liu is on the phone. He's a surgeon specializing in neuroendocrine tumors. He practices at Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers in Colorado, and he's the chief medical advisor for the Healing NET, Gastrointestinal and Pancreatic Neuroendocrine Tumors Foundation. Hope I said all of that right. Dr. Liu, good morning. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm all questions about this one. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, Larry. Thanks for having me. And it is quite a mouthful, so good job.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's all I have is a mouth. I'm the future of radio hosts. Just a mouth. That's all I have. A talking mouth. Where are you? Are you in Colorado right now?
I am. That's right. So we're actually preparing for some snow.
No way. Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
nice.
Yeah, sure.
See?
That's right.
The grass is always greener, isn't it? You probably want to be here. I want to be there. Or no, do you like the snow?
That's right. No, the snow is really quite beautiful. It's beautiful here in Denver.
Well, it's beautiful here, too. Well, thank you for being on. Yeah, I'd never heard of this before. 7 years to diagnose. And now the word tumor makes me think that there's something visible or at least, feelable. You can feel it. No?
Yeah, no, and that's really the challenge. So these neuroendocrine tumors, they come from small cells that normally control your breathing and your digestion. But every now and then they can turn to tumors. And that's really the problem, is because they tend to be on the inside. So you cannot feel them, you cannot see them, and they manifest themselves as these unusual symptoms. And the problem is the symptoms can be really quite common, or they can be quite unusual, and they can last for a long time, which is why the diagnosis can be so challenging. And just imagine if you have some flushing or some diarrhea, it's easy to say that you might have something else, when in fact it could be caused by something like a tumor, a neuroendocrine tumor in this case.
And where do they form?
Well, they can come from really all over your body. In fact, it's a disease you may have never heard of, but you certainly know someone who has already died of the disease. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, he had pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor. And so they can come from lots of different places, including the lungs, the guts, the stomach, the pancreas, and the liver too. So
typically, I've had a question about tumors and cancer for a long time, so I guess this is two parts in one. So maybe my question applies to all tumors, or maybe it just applies to these tumors. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I've always wondered, if a tumor is cancerous and we cut it out, do we prevent the, what is the word, metastasis? Yeah, do we prevent that by cutting out a tumor?
Well, that's a challenging and very complicated question, Larry, very, very deep. These cancers are actually really quite varied, and they can come from different places. So if we talk about cancer in general, really every cancer is different, every person is different, so you have to think about it individually. So sometimes certain cancers can be what we call localized. They may come from a certain spot, let's say from your colon, for example, or maybe from your breast, and they haven't reached the point or haven't gained the ability to spread or metastasize, as you would ask.
Okay.
However, sometimes these tumors are systemic, so they've actually spread before we even know it. And so removing the tumor is helpful because you want to get it out, but at the same time, it may have already spread and be microscopic, and it just takes time for us to find it. But neuroendocrine tumors can actually behave in the same way. And because it's so hard to diagnose and can take up to 5 to 7 years to make that diagnosis, it's very common for us to make the diagnosis when the disease has already spread and is more advanced.
Oh, it's harder to do it with that at that point.
Well, it is, but you have to you have to deal with the cards that are dealt to you. And so if it's already been spread, the good thing about neuroendocrine is it tends to be a slow-growing tumor. One of the challenges we have is that neuroendocrine tumors are not even well understood by our own medical community. And so there may be some misunderstandings about how it is, how it behaves. And so we always encourage people to, one, have a very open conversation with your physician, but two, really seek advice and information from either good resources or even seeking a second opinion from a neuroendocrine specialist who may or may not live in your state, because only then can you really craft the very best kind of treatment plan for you to live a good, healthy, and sometimes very, very long life, even with stage 4 cancer.
Are some of these tumors misdiagnosed as polyps?
Well, that's an interesting issue, Robin. Usually they're not misdiagnosed as polyps because those are things you may find on, say, colonoscopy or maybe some kind of scope. Most of the time it's symptoms. So let's say someone walks in the door, especially like say a woman who walks in with flushing. She may be diagnosed with menopause. Or you may have someone who has chronic diarrhea. They may be diagnosed with irritable bowel. And you may get treated for years and years and years. Unfortunately, it turns out the disease was originally caused by a tumor, a cancer, so neuroendocrine cancer. So that's really the more common scenario. And that's why it's such a challenge. And I'm hoping that with our conversation today to create more awareness so people can think about it. Because like I always say, you can't really fix the problem until you figure it out.
So how do you use that information? Let's say somebody's listening right now. They've just been diagnosed with irritable bowel. They're taking whatever, or they're doing whatever they're supposed to do for that, and now they're hearing you. And I mean, well, do they go back to their doctor and say, wait a minute, can we make sure this is not something else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that is something to consider. Usually the first thing to do is, and I'm not here to cause a panic, don't get me wrong, Larry. Most common things are caused by common things. And so if you have some diarrhea, most of the time it could be from, bad food or something like that. However, if the symptoms last longer, if the treatments aren't working, the most important thing is for the patient to feel empowered and open enough to question that. Is something going on? Could it be something different? What we're trying is not working. Remember, as a healthcare professional, I'm not with you 24 hours a day, so I depend on you to give me that information so we can make good decisions. And that may mean extra blood tests, maybe extra scans, extra tests, something like that. But remember, you can't figure it out unless you think about it. And so if it's a possibility of a neuroendocrine tumor or some cancer causing it, I want to figure it out as soon as possible because I want to get the treatment started as soon as possible.
So is it a process of elimination where you do the most likely thing first, and then and then you come back maybe a week later or 10 days later, and if that doesn't fix it, then maybe it's the next thing? Is that how you figure it out?
Yeah. That's as advanced as we are nowadays, sometimes it is a little bit of trial and error. And because everyone's so different, it can be really challenging. And so that's why we want to make sure that people have a good relationship with their physicians, because you want to make sure you have that conversation. So you do go back and you do follow up and you let them know what's going on, especially if things aren't working and not helping.
Well, doctors don't like it when their patients self-diagnose, but the internet is really making it possible for people to go on and at least see if they know what's going on. And you have something called Know Your Nets.
Yeah, that's right, Robin.
What's it called?
Yeah,
Your
Nets.
Yeah, Nets.
Okay.
Know Your Nets. Yeah,
Nets.
We're very excited because there's a new website called, as you said, knowyournets.com, and that's NETS, like neuroendocrine tumors. So knowyournets.com.
Okay.
It's a new website that's been launched. It has lots of information about it, about neuroendocrine. It has the things like signs and symptoms, so you can kind of be aware of how you're feeling. But it explains what the disease is and kind of what the process is. So it's a great place to get started if you think you have neuroendocrine tumors, and it's also a great place to go even after you've been diagnosed, because, as we've been saying, the most important thing is that a patient be empowered and proactive, and the thing they can do is to have that knowledge in hand and have that open conversation with the physician so that we can create the very best plan for you.
Okay, Know Your Nets, NETS.com is the website. I'm wondering, is there anything, this is probably a general question about cancer in general, is there anything we can do lifestyle-wise that would maybe 90% of the time prevent any cancer at all?
Well, I can't say that for sure because we do live in a modern world, and so, there are lots of things that go on, and people do live healthy lives, but that's the one thing you can do, certainly, that you can control. You can certainly, stop smoking. That's one of the most important things. Staying healthy and making sure you're not obese is another extremely important thing for cancer. But just living a healthy lifestyle, eating well, drinking lots of water, keeping yourself safe, having a a good support system, a good community, a good family, good friends. Those are the kinds of things. Living that great quality of life is extremely important. And so there are lots of things we can do. I cannot say for sure that it can 100% prevent any kind of cancer or anything happen. Because remember, I mean, Larry, children can get cancer too.
Oh, I know.
And
you know who I always use, this shows my age, but I always use Linda McCartney. I don't know if you remember her or not from the Beatles days. Paul McCartney's wife. She died of cancer, and she was eating like this perfect diet, remember?
Of course. I've heard many stories. The one thing I am encouraged about is that, we do live in a modern day of medicine, and it's very exciting. There are lots of new therapies, new tests, new surgeries, lots of new things that we're doing to help people with cancer live longer. Because, all of us may get cancer someday, but if we can all be survivors, then that's a real success story, and that's what we're going for.
And, the little role that we play as radio people in all this, I mean, compared to what you do as a doctor is so small, but our tiny little role is simply to talk to people like you, get the information out. And what I love about today's world is that it doesn't stop here with the conversation. You can now take this to a website and learn more. And Robin's comment about we diagnose now, I think sometimes we misdiagnose, but at least we try to educate ourselves as best as we can. And when there's a reliable website, I think that's the best one. So
that's exactly right, Larry. And so patients can always go to knowyournets.com. There's a lot of information. It's a great place to start.
Really good information, Doctor, in a very short period of time to get it all out there. Thank you for being on the air with us. We'll put this interview as well as that web link. Robin already put the web link on our Facebook page, so it's already there. The video will be there by 2 o'clock today. Thank you, Doctor. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. In the fight over immigration, the White House blasting a Fifth Circuit Court decision which blocks the president's plans to protect some 5 million from deportation. That's something Republicans had criticized as an illegal executive overreach. An administration statement saying the lawsuit is preventing people who've been part of our communities for years from working on the books.
The White House could ask for a rehearing, and any appeals over this injunction could take months to play out.